All right, so spring is almost over, but what I wanted to do is kind of give you all a nice little top five list here of spring fragrances that I personally recommend. And so, just to get started with the list, I'm going to start off with a fragrance from Fragrance World, a part of their Jack Yves line. And this was actually one that I wasn't really too big on when I first got it, but as this bottle has sat, on my shelf and sort of maturated, I feel like it's definitely gotten a little bit better and definitely closer to the original. This is going to be a clone of Louis Vuitton's Orage, and this is Tempete. All right. So the main sort of complaint that I had about this fragrance was that this one, when I first got it, it just really didn't seem to have any sort of iris in the fragrance, as compared to the iris that was in the original Louis Vuitton. That was definitely a lot more prominent, and to me, it sort of changed the character of how the fragrance smelled. Now, while this one still isn't, I would say, on the level of the Louis Vuitton, and this one isn't going to be like as close of a clone as, say, like the L'Infinite is from the same Jack Yves line. I do think that this has definitely gotten a lot closer to, the original. I would say probably about 85, 90% or so. And this one also, it has gotten a lot better, man. This is like a really sort of citrusy, green, I would say kind of slightly powdery because of the iris, but the iris in this doesn't come off as super powdery. This is just kind of like you're walking through like a forest or something like that. It just rained, so the air is humid, and you kind of smell like citrus in the air. You smell like the wet grass, the wet leaves. It just overall, it does smell very pleasant, and I think that this is a really, really nice, springtime sort of fragrance. You can also definitely wear this one in the summer. I would say really anytime where the weather is a little bit warmer, definitely warmer than like the winter or the fall. But definitely, I think spring and summer is going to be where this fragrance is going to shine the most. The longevity really on both this and Orage, at least for me, is not really that great. I feel like these fragrances max, they're probably like around 4 to 5 hour fragrances, both Tempete and Orage. But I would say again, this is a really nice choice for the springtime. Again, this is Fragrance World's Jack Yves Tempete. All right, so another one from Fragrance World, and this is going to be their take on Orto Parisi's Megamare, and this is Aqua Pura Eau de Parfum. All right, so this fragrance, this is a really, really different fragrance. When it comes to like those sort of aquatic style fragrances, this is really, really different. So this one, you kind of get like, you don't really get the same sort of aquatic style feel that you get from most aquatic fragrances. I feel like most of them, they kind of focus on stuff like sea salt, a lot of, really sort of sweet citruses and stuff like that. Whereas I feel like with this does have a citrusy aspect to it. It definitely has kind of like a lemon sort of citrus feel to it. But this also, it has like a really heavy emphasis on what smells kind of like seaweed pretty much. And I mean, I know that definitely it sounds weird, but the way that this smells, it does smell very good. Now, I will say that this is also improved a little bit, with maturation as well, both in terms of performance and I would say even in terms of the smell. This is not going to be, I would say, as good as the original fragrance from Orto Parisi. That one definitely, you can tell, is a lot more complex, and it definitely is a higher quality fragrance. But I feel like this one, at least for like a kind of, an entry into that sort of style of fragrance, is definitely a solid choice. And I do think that this is a really nice fragrance for both the spring and summertime. All right. So again, definitely check this one out, especially if you're familiar with Orto Parisi's Megamare. Definitely check this one out. Again, this is Aqua Pura Eau de Parfum from Fragrance World. All right, so the next one, this is going to be from the house of Lattafa. This is part of their Lattafa Pride collection. And this is their take on Initio's Paragon, and this is Vintage Radio. So this one to me, I feel like would kind of more so be best suited for like the early spring when it's still kind of cool outside for the most part, but it is starting to warm up. This one I think would definitely be like a really good mood boosting fragrance for that time of the year where, you know, it's kind of still, you know, sort of overcast every day. You know, it's kind of cool outside, but, you know, again, it's starting to get warmer. And, you know, obviously if you live in an area where it snows, you know, obviously the snow is starting to turn more into kind of rain. I would say this is definitely going to be a good choice for that time of the year. So this one is just pretty much, it's lavender, it's plum, it's Palo Santo, it's pepper, it's sandalwood, just a really, really nice combination of notes. And like I said, this particular rendition of the scent profile anyway, the Vintage Radio, I think is a little bit more on the masculine side, which I definitely appreciate a little bit more than the original from Initio. And again, this one, it lasts all day long pretty much. So definitely, man, check this one out. Again, this is Vintage Radio from Lattafa Pride. All right, so the next one is going to be from Art Al Zafran, and this is their take on Louis Vuitton's Imagination, and this is Saheb Intense. All right, so Imagination, that scent profile, in my opinion, I would say is probably one of the most sort of springtime, you know, sort of appropriate fragrances. Now, it also does really well in the summertime as well. So it is definitely a spring and summertime fragrance. But I just feel like the way that that fragrance comes across, it definitely comes across as like a springtime fragrance. So does this one as well. Now, I do think that this one is, the way that this one comes across, especially with the tea note, and the way that the citruses are done in this, it is also going to be a really good summer fragrance as well. But again, I do think that this is a really, really nice springtime fragrance. You get that mixture of sort of tart citruses in the top, along with tea, a little bit of neroli. You kind of get like a woodiness from the fragrance in the dry down. This is just a really amazing, fresh, clean fragrance. And again, this is Saheb Intense from Art Al Zafran. All right, and so the last one on the list, this is one of my newer pickups. But just in general, I feel like this scent profile is just, I would say, probably one of the most perfect sort of, you know, springtime fragrances. This is going to be Fragrance World's Neroli Riveria, and this is their take on Neroli Portofino from Tom Ford. So obviously I have the Porto Neroli as well from Maison Alhambra. What I can definitely tell is there is a noticeable difference, I would say, between this and Porto Neroli. Now, what I need to do is I need to actually pick up another sample of Tom Ford's Neroli Portofino, because when I initially did, you know, my comparison between Porto Neroli and Neroli Portofino last year, I just had one of those like really tiny 1 ml like dab on samples. And what I've noticed with, you know, doing, you know, fragrance comparisons between clones and like those little tiny dab on 1 ml samples is it seems like the fragrance doesn't smell the same when you kind of like dab it on out of one of those bottles as opposed to when you spray it out of, you know, like an atomizer. So I think that is partially why I kind of, you know, I had this, you know, sort of feeling that Porto Neroli was like a 1-to-1 clone pretty much of Neroli Portofino. But after smelling this, I feel like this one is probably going to be a little bit closer to what Neroli Portofino actually smells like, as opposed to the Maison Alhambra. The Maison Alhambra definitely does smell pretty good. It does, I would say, project a little bit more than what this one does. But this one, just to me, it smells a little bit more refined, and more kind of like what I get from other Tom Ford fragrances that I've smelled out of atomized sprayers. You know, I kind of get more of that sort of feel from this fragrance. So again, I'll be getting a sample of Porto or Neroli Portofino pretty soon to basically compare this and Porto Neroli too. But man, pretty much this is a really nice floral, citrusy, slightly kind of spicy sort of scent that I feel like really is not masculine or feminine. It's just pretty much, it's completely unisex. And this really goes well, I think, with just like kind of like an all white outfit pretty much, man. That's pretty much what I think of when, you know, I think about this particular fragrance. So definitely I would say, you know, if you're looking for a really solid Neroli Portofino clone, I would say so far, based on what I've smelled from this one would actually be the one that I would recommend. And again, this is going to be Neroli Riveria from Fragrance World. So that's the list. That's the list of my top 5 sort of spring fragrances that I would recommend to anyone sort of looking for a spring fragrance. Let me know if you all have smelled any or all of these fragrances. And if so, how do you all enjoy these fragrances? Do you mainly wear these only in the springtime? Do you wear them all year round? Do you wear them in the summertime? Let me know. So definitely let me know in the comments below. And again, if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And once again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see you on the next video.